Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. And it's always our privilege and honor to sit with you and get together with you as we go over these headlines so that we can stay informed. And like we like to say, be informed but not overwhelmed. And there's so many things that can do that. In fact, I do believe that's part of the adversary's attempt right now is to get you to an overwhelmed state. And so let me encourage you not to allow that um, to happen, and instead to remember the admonishment of our King and Messiah. And he said, "Let not your heart be troubled. In this world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world." And so just continue to take that encouragement. I know that I need that. I don't know about the rest of you, but I certainly need that encouragement on a regular basis. And speaking of encouragement, thank you for the 5x5s out there. And I'm always grateful for those of you that join us for these updates. And I do believe this is an important thing to do consistently. There are some times when I'm just like, oh man, I don't even want to know. Um, and you almost want to put your head in the sand. You almost want to completely disconnect, really, so that you can, ignore the things that are happening. But unfortunately, we're not allowed to do that. We're commanded to watch and to pray and to be those that are aware and awake. And in fact, we're the ones that sound the alarm, aren't we? And many of you are those watchmen out there that sound the alarm, and many of your family and relatives actually depend on it, whether they admit it to you or not. That, when they see you light up about something, they know it's probably something they need to look at. So be encouraged in that, and know that this is one of the things that we're commanded to do. He said, "Let your light so shine before men that they would see your good work and glorify your Father which is in heaven." Amen and amen. And speaking of good work, I do want to encourage those of you that haven't done so already to please bookmark our website at remnantwatch.com. That's remnantwatch.com. And I do believe you'll be encouraged and blessed by it. You won't find a bunch of advertisements and things like that on there. We don't have a bunch of pop-ups or anything. We try to cut as much of that out of the experience so that we can kind of get at the things that we need to get at. And this site is there just as an aggregate site for you to keep track of the stories that we've already discussed. And as we get into those things, as we cover those things, we can start looking at them from I like to call it the 10,000 foot view. Some people, want to be zoomed way out so that they can really get a good idea of what is happening across the board. And of course, we're looking at all of these events in light of scriptural prophecies, the prophecies that were recorded in the scriptures for us. And so these are the things that we look at, and we look through the lens of the scripture to see how these things are confirming the word of the living Elohim. Amen and amen. And so very much encouraged by the notes and comments, especially by those people that are maybe coming a little closer, maybe inching closer to the light a little bit and rubbing their eyes a bit as they're wondering, are we all crazy or are we on to something? And I think that's a natural reaction. Remember when you woke up to certain things, there were certain things that you almost thought you had lost your mind as you were recovering and you're getting your sight. So it's not easy to suddenly go, oh my goodness, things that I believed were true are not. Anytime you discover that you're being deceived, that moment that you discover the deception is a very unsettling moment. And that's multiplied by the number of lies that we've all been told and sold. And so my heart goes out with great compassion to those that are awakening in this hour and are just now catching up to some of the things that you guys have already figured out. I mean, think about that and just how much they have in terms of catch up to do in this time period. So let's be compassionate. Let's encourage our brothers and sisters in Messiah, those who love him with a sincere heart, And let's encourage them to be awake in this hour and get the oil they need. Yeah, we need Eagle Vision is right. We need that right now. And on that note, let's get into the news. And this week, we're seeing a lot of what I would call smokescreen. And so let's pay attention. International Criminal Court, as we've been paying attention to the way in which this whole scenario has been shaping out. And the International Criminal Court has been mentioned. We've noticed this, probably a dozen times this year in major headlines. And here we have another one. International Criminal Court seeking arrest warrant for Netanyahu on charges of war crimes. So this isn't going away. This is heating up. And because the base is drumming for it, literally, I do believe that it's going to continue to pick up steam. In an exclusive interview, the ICC prosecutor seeks arrest warrant against Sinwar and Netanyahu for war crimes over October 7th and Gaza. So they are coming hard. The International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity over the October 7th attacks on Israel and the subsequent war in Gaza. The court's prosecutors, Karim Khan, told CNN's Christina Manpour in an exclusive interview on Monday. Now, we have to take this with a grain of salt. However, it is interesting that this is being promoted in the mainstream media, if you will. In other words, where it's coming out and how these are being presented. And so, we've all watched, those of us in the West have watched how they can compartmentalize the media and what information is shared with you. So the very fact that something's even being shared with you in and of itself reflects a agenda. The very fact that it's even put out there could easily have been ignored and not promoted as a story, but it was not. And instead, it's being put out on constantly negative news, right? So, you got to understand that, this is part of the plan. And it may look like, one hand, and one of the things that everybody needs to be aware of is sometimes in this theatrical performance, you get suckered into believing in good guys and bad guys. It's easy to do. We've all done it. And this is the dichotomy they love to get you into, because then you start rooting for one or the other. And you don't realize that they're all in it together. They're all on the same production. They're all part of the same, what do they call those? Casting companies or whatever. They're all part of the same casting company. They're all putting on the same play, and it is all being directed by the same spirit, with the intent of drawing away those who are not selected, those who are not the elect. And so remember, this deception is supposed to be so strong that it would deceive, even if it were possible. If it were possible, it would deceive even the very elect. Okay, if it were possible. So that tells you right there just how serious this level of deception is expected to be in these last days. So with that backdrop and understanding, keeping that in mind, understand that these things that are being put out in front of you are there for a reason. Speaking of things that have come out in front of us, just yesterday we saw this headline that came out and, of course, dominated the news, and main helicopter crash involving the Iranian president, which of course is being covered now extensively in the news. And so President Raisi was likely traveling on a Bell 212 helicopter acquired before the Iranian Revolution. And so one of the things that they're blaming is the sanctions, because spare parts have been such an issue for the Iranians as a result of the sanctions. And consequently, it has caused the degradation of their infrastructure, including things like presidential helicopters. So apparently presidential helicopters were not immune to the sanctions. And so this just goes to show you the level of warfare and the multi-levels of warfare, and how warfare that's economic can have an actual kinetic response. And so this is something that is now out there. And of course, this is drawing a lot of attention because there are those that are now wondering, well, who did this? Was this intentional? There's a lot of conspiracy theories now rising up. Russia, of course, is now announced its readiness to assist Iran in the Raisi crash investigation, says Shoigu, who is their Security Council General. And so they're basically ready to stand with Iran to get to the bottom of who did this. And this right away, the very fact that they are saying there's going to be an investigation instead of calling it an accident, tells you that they're suspicious. And I think reasonably so, considering this is a time of war and deception. And so, and taking your enemy by surprise is part of war. And so you're seeing a tremendous amount of last gasp by the beast, if you will, as the grip of the dying dragon falls to the ground, as it breathes its last. It's gasping and grasping for whatever it can grab on its way down. And the scripture will be fulfilled. The promises that were made to us will be fulfilled, and the whore will be judged. And I believe many of the things that you're watching now are manifestations of the same spiritual battle. The spiritual battle we're told about in the book of Revelation, that unless you had that book, you wouldn't even know those things were even going on. So that book gives you insight behind the scenes of the socioeconomic, political, geopolitical warfare that is going to affect all of mankind throughout the earth, and already does. So we're seeing that now really manifest as we're getting much more of the understanding that the people, the everyday people, the normal, if you will, for lack of a better term, people are awakening to the realization that they are the target. And there's a small group with the intent on controlling the target. And as that hits people, it is huge, but it is also causing a destruction of the strongholds that kept a lot of these things working. Because again, that hypnosis that most of society operates under is what makes that economy work. It's what makes that dollar flow. It's what makes the fiat system function. It's what keeps the hegemony working. If people start awakening, if people start figuring out what's really going on, well, then that's going to cause realignment. And that's exactly what we're seeing in the natural manifesting right now, in accordance to what we believe is fulfilling the word of Elohim concerning the last days. And American global hegemony is coming to an end, and it's being publicly talked about on the Hill. Look at that. As American global hegemony ends, multi-alignment rises. Now, forget all the details of these. Don't get caught up in the details of these stories and what have you. Watch the patterns of the way in which they're dropping these things. They're letting you know, and they're certainly telling their inside people that we are moving along with the plan to move from an American world order to a new world order. And that is what I do believe you're seeing manifested. I think that's what the fight really is about. And this is, of course, nothing new. And I think that it's going to be continually manifesting with various forms of conflict as different groups sort of jockey for position. So they're jockeying for who's going to run the next millennium. And they have not taken into consideration the one who has dibs. Just plain and simple. They operate, and they always do, as if they have forever. Days of Noah, they thought they had forever. Days of Lot, they thought they had forever, and they just don't. And so those that have eyes to see are behaving accordingly. And here's a good example of that. China is in the process of outright liquidating its U.S. assets, its dollar assets. There's a reason for that. If you have a very positive outlook of the future for the nation that you're holding the currency in, you don't let it go. You don't fire sale it. You don't dump it. You don't get rid of it as fast as possible. You hold on to it. You use it as a hedge. You use it as part of your asset portfolio. The fact that they're doing this record sell-off is telling you something. With the China-U.S. trade war showing no signs of ceasing, the fully fledged partnership between Beijing and Moscow continues to prosper as President Vladimir Putin pledges privileges to Chinese investors in Russia. And what they're realizing is that they have the majority of the world. So the shrinking minority of people that want to live under the old regime as they see it, again, got to look at it from their point of view. Go right ahead. You want to live under that? You want to eat bugs? Go right ahead. You want to live under that? These crazy, warmongers? Go right ahead. So they're basically the other part of the world going, you guys want to follow them? You go ahead. We're not doing it. And it'd be one thing if it were just individual groups in these countries, but when it is the countries themselves and bringing their entire economies and their entire infrastructure into this effort, I just cannot emphasize enough just how big this is. I mean, we're talking about $53 billion in treasuries in the first quarter of 2024 were sold off by China. That's a huge move, and it's indicative of what they would call the smart money is now doing. It is slowly distancing itself from the eventual collapse of the hegemony that we've been warning you about, which we believe is pictured in the book of Revelation, where we see the picturing of the whore being judged, the witchcraft and sorcery that is over the nations is being judged. And so we do see there's going to be, and again, some things may not themselves be successful, but they may be signals of what is happening in the spirit realm. So this is why we take note of them. So for example, here's a good example of that. When does anyone, especially my generation, remember there being a representative which introduced a Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act to end the Fed? When have we ever seen this? Okay, we've never seen this, but I've never seen this in my adult life. So this is an indicator that we've crossed a Rubicon. We've changed into a different scenario than the one that we had been experiencing up until this point. And Representative Thomas Massey, Republican from Kentucky, announced the introduction of H.R. 8421, the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act. And Representative Massey's legislation abolishes the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Banks. It also appeals the Federal Reserve Act, the 1913 law that created the Federal Reserve System, which, if you draw too much attention to that particular law and that particular time period, the whole sweater will unravel. The whole sweater will unravel. So this is again a shot across the bow that the days of the old system are coming to a halt. And this is something that we just can't ignore as a signal. There's too many different things that they're putting out there to, sort of put this narrative in the minds of the people and soften the blow. Whenever a narrative is being spun, whenever they're spending time spinning a narrative, it's because it's intentional. There's something coming, and they want to soften that blow. They want to soften the arrival. They want to soften the landing. Okay. and make it easier to explain, and further continue to manipulate and control the people that are still paying attention to whatever voices are still out there. And so this is why narrative watching is really an important part of our work, so that we don't get lost in the details, but watch the kinds of machinations that are happening that may threaten you, the remnant, wherever you may be. And so one of the things that we knew was coming was an economic attack, if you will, according to the book of Revelation. You would not be able to buy or sell without the mark, without the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And so every step that is being taken, we have to look intelligently and see what each step really does. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't ignore anything. We have to look with intelligence and say, oh, okay, this move right here, this thing that they're doing right now, well, this is the point of that. Its intention is to bring us to this place, wherever that next place may be. And so there's constant manipulation happening. Pardon me, I got a little mouse issue going on here. There's constant manipulation happening. And one of those new ones that is coming out, if I can get my mouse to work. No, it doesn't want to work for me. One of the things that, there we go. Hopefully, there we are. Where am I? Come on, buddy. Yeah, take a look at this. Universal basic income. The AI godfather, as if that gives him some kind of extra juice, right? We'll need universal basic income. So they're already moving us toward this mental position, this idea that in order to function, people are going to need a basic income. And so this is part of what I believe is the, attack of the wicked one, to bring us into a subjugated system. And again, folks, most people, even if you told them, like, you have a month to start getting self-sufficient, or you have 6 months or whatever, they wouldn't move. That wouldn't have any impact at all on them, because they have become so accustomed to living in the way that they live, that the notion of having to go out there and fend for yourself, if you will, and develop new solutions and verticals, people are deadly afraid of that reality. And if I may speak just extemporaneously, since my mouse isn't working, I'm not going to be able to put up a bunch of things on my screen. It just absolutely ceased functioning. So pardon me for the little technical difficulty there. That's a new one. That's a new one. But as things start to unfold, as more things start to unfold, I do believe that people are going to crack emotionally. And this is again why it's so important for you as the remnant to be prepared, to be someone there for them in that time, in that difficult moment. Because let's face it, if you're think about from their perspective, they don't know anything. They've just awakened, and they're learning as fast as they possibly can. How disoriented do you think the average person is going to feel? Yeah, I don't know. It's not batteries. The light is green, so the light is green, but it is not working green. So there's a tremendous amount of overwhelmedness that I do believe that people are going to be battling with. And this is where I believe we're going to be in the fight the most. News stories aside, can't get to them anyway because I don't have a mouse. Your value right now is to be a vessel of love and a vessel of the truth of the gospel of the kingdom. This is where they need you the most. As more and more things start to unfold, as smoke screens start to fall back, as things are no longer able to hide their nefarious activity, or no longer able to spin stories, if you will, and get people off their tail, then you're going to see more desperate measures by those that are guilty and have been conducting themselves in an inappropriate way. This is going to be devastating for the late to leave, if you will, the late to wake up, the people that are late to figure it out. It's kind of like the person who's being cheated on. It's a terrible example, but you'll get the point really quickly. And everyone knows except the person that's being cheated on. And you're literally going to watch them suddenly realize it. Everybody in the room's like, oh my gosh, oh honey, I'm so sorry, right? Because you knew all along what they were about to experience. Well, a lot of you are literally watching people get the bad news and get the sort of pink slip, get the reality that a lot of what they believed, a lot of what they were counting on, a lot of what they thought was going to be their salvation and help in this time is turning out to not be. It's turning out to not be the case. And despite our best efforts and desires to, be a blessing and overcome these things, that may not, that doesn't necessarily manifest. And so these are the challenges that we face. And unfortunately, that's the ongoing battle that I believe many people are going to suddenly awaken in. And this is where you are a critical piece, because you have your connection. You've already had your awakening. You had your difficult moments. You had your times when you suddenly were able to see past the veil and you were able to go, oh my goodness, what is going on here? And you had your chance to adjust. So this gives you an advantage when they start to fall apart. You're able to calm them down and say, okay, I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through. Yeah, we all had to go through that too. It's true. It's real. And like, we have to get over it, and that is unfortunately not something that we can in any way, shorten or make less than. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't take that and turn it into something that isn't that important or isn't going to be that significant. No, it's going to be significant. It's going to remain significant in their life. It's going to be significant in yours. And so this is why we have to be a people that are sensitive, that love one another, and that care one for another deeply. Without that, my friends, I want to tell you right now, we're in a world of hurt, and we won't be coming out of this hurt very well. I know a lot of folks are right now really feeling it, feeling that loneliness, feeling the sense of disconnected. And this is a big reason why Remnant House was formed, was for this moment in time, to give you a point of connection. And all these other things that we're doing, they're just our way of trying to reach out, trying to connect, trying to give you a place where you can say, hey, at least there's other people that are experiencing some of the things that I'm experiencing. And, I'm not nuts. So no, you're not nuts. You're not crazy. You're definitely, you're all going through what you're going through. You're all experiencing it. You're all experiencing your own breakthroughs. And this is one of the reasons why we have to be a people that care one for another. And so I just want to encourage all of you that are just now waking up. Don't feel like something strange has happened to you. No, it's happened to everybody. Everybody that I know has had a moment where they're going, what is going on here? What is happening? And so just understand that this is part of what we are dealing with. And I think that all of us are experiencing that sort of gaslighting feeling of how many lies did we get told? How many things were manipulated? How many areas did the Pharisees, Messiah warned us about? How many areas did they go ahead of us and sort of poison the wells? We're just finding all those things out. Part of what we're doing when we're looking over these news articles, when the system was working, it's not working right now, but when it's working, um, is just deciphering their plots and the way in which they continue to war against you. This is part of their continued plan, is to keep warring against you in such a way that you do not have any chance to coalesce as a family, to get on your feet, to develop strategies, and to begin to work together. They don't want any of those things to happen. They don't want you to coalesce. They don't want you to discuss and organize. They certainly don't want you to formulate strategies together, because the more you do that, the more you think like that, the less you need them. And they start becoming less and less significant in your life until the point comes when they basically become irrelevant, and there's no place for those who are irrelevant. And so this is why I believe they will keep sabotaging, like our attack on our systems here, to keep us from uniting, to keep us from that connection. And we've been, I don't know about the rest of you, but we've been battling some challenges, and we can see that our enemies do not want us united. Okay, they want to get in the way, and they're frustrated because we don't give them a lot of reasons, right? So when you walk upright, many of you are really being moved by Elohim to walk in such a way that nobody can lay a finger on you. And they are looking for reasons to accuse you of things, and they can't find anything. You're behaving yourself in such a way that it just makes them even more angry, because they can find nothing wrong with what you're doing. They don't have anything to grab a hold of. This means that you're really upsetting the kingdom of darkness. And now it becomes dirty tricks time. When they can't get you legally, then they go illegal. When they can't get you, with high ground, then they go low ground, because win at all costs is their motto. Like, that's like on page 2 of their book, And so there's definitely going to be continued warfare in your lives and mine and all of us. We're going to keep seeing it. And if you think it's just going to go away easily, I've got news for you. That just isn't going to be the case any more than my computer challenge is just going to go away easily. Watch, as soon as I disconnect and power down, it'll come right back. it'll work just great. Let me see if I can unplug one thing and see if that'll work. Sometimes this receiver goes a little crazy. What's up there, buddy? You want to help me out? No? You want to work today? Somebody said, change your batteries, Peter. I'm like, yeah, I change my batteries all the time, guys. I'm always changing my batteries, man. It's not my batteries, I promise you. It just decided that today, during the broadcast, I told you, like, lately things have it's been weird. It's been really bizarre stuff. Things that I've never had a problem with before in my life. And all of a sudden, yeah, I'm totally freestyling. No. Yeah, I'm kind of stuck here, guys. Now it's telling me I have to restart I got to reboot. So I think I'm just going to have to let you guys go. Unfortunately. I don't think I'm going to be able to hang out with you much longer here. So let this broadcast, I pray it's an encouragement. Yeah, nothing goes wrong at the right time. And I pray this broadcast was an encouragement to you. I pray that you all continue to find your fold, to find your brothers and sisters, to connect where you can. We all need one another. I don't care who you are and how strong you are. We all need one another. I need your prayers right now so I can figure out what's wrong with this system. But thank you for joining us. May Elohim bless each and every one of you. Shalom. Okay. I got that to work. Come on, man. Oh, wow, look at that. It picked up right where I left off. Picked up right where I left off. I think I'm still live. I think I'm actually still live. Can you all still hear me? Seeing me trying to fix this thing? David, I think you're right. I think it was the batteries, by the way. So I don't know if anybody is still out there, but that was a trip, man. Wow, I had to basically reboot and this thing stayed on the whole time. I thought for sure it would disconnect. So that's kind of wild in and of itself that it did that. So let's see if it lets me add this to the stage. Well, look at that. It's letting me put it back on there. How about that? Huh. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Don't ask me why it did that. I have no idea. It's very odd. Very odd experience. I tell you what, these pop-ups, I don't know if anybody else thinks they're awesome or something, because I sure don't. I think that I think they really do literally zero for the experience, if you will. By the way, did you guys know that New York City is planning on? I can't show you this story. They're planning on starting to use drones for their investigations. Yeah, so they're going to get you used to the idea of drones, which is kind of an interesting thing that we're going to start to see. And then here's another thing. Did you know that they're suddenly going to have no choice but to deliver all UFO reports? And this is something that was prophesied in 2014. We got a prophetic word that this would be one of the signs of the coming of the King, is that there would be proof of, or I should say, a disclosure would go mainstream. So interesting that we're seeing this unfold now, which is bizarre, but nevertheless, this is one of the things that we knew was coming, and part of the deceptions of the last days. So interesting stuff. And again, I had some other stories here about the Iranian president, but unfortunately, he they weren't sure if he was dead, and then finally they were able to confirm that he did pass away. And so there were several stories that were leading us in that direction, and then finally they showed it. So I was just going to point out how they build narrative. But here's another thing we've been watching for a while, guys. Remember this whole sickness thing, right? This new level of pandemic, this new thing that they're going to try to unveil and put out there for people. And what's its intention? Well, its intention is to once again subjugate. So you're seeing, and is it interesting that it's in this particular state? I find that to be more than interesting, because I believe that certain agendas are being promoted in certain places that aren't being promoted in other places, right? And so, that particular city and state remains in the news, and I believe for good reason, to continue to sort of help steer. It's become basically the default steer of the agenda for much of what we we would probably call the, opposition or deep state or all these other things. But again, I keep telling you, they're two wings of the same bird. Two wings, pardon the pun on the word bird, but it is a word in the news quite a bit. The issue is when to pull the trigger. How prepared are we for, oh no, for this thing, right? So again, this is going to be the new scare. This is something that we do see coming. And I do believe that we're going to see more and more energy put in this area and into this particular discussion point. Let's just put it like that. This discussion point isn't going to go away anytime soon. I think it's going to keep being a discussion point going forward. So it is what it is, and we're going to keep seeing more stories that that keep aligning. On the one hand, they want to tell you, that it's going here, it's going there, it's doing this, it's doing that. But then again, and we saw this last week too, we see this confusion. How fast is bird flu spreading in the U.S. cows? Oh, we have no idea. Okay, so why are you out talking about it in the public if you, as you've yourself said, have no idea? It's spreading rapidly. How would you know that if you have no idea? If you're not doing testing, then you don't really know. You're speculating or prophesying. And so this is another form of prophecy that people are in fact being affected by, that is turning out, I think, to be false prophecy in a lot of cases. So, these things need to be fact checked when they're, projecting a certain result and a certain outcome. And it's not manifesting or materializing the way that they said. And I'll tell you another one that didn't materialize. I don't know if you know this, but if I were a Californian, I'd be really upset because there were so many billions of dollars that were allocated for this issue in California so that they wouldn't have homelessness. So that was the whole intention of allocating the funds. I don't know where those funds went. I can tell you where they didn't go. They didn't go towards this problem because homelessness skyrockets in an iconic southern city where locals say rich Californians are moving in and driving up property prices. So, basically, you're seeing it all over the United States. You're seeing this effect happening, and you're seeing even when they go into a different area, now they're being blamed for that. And so it is not good. And the homelessness problem is really something that I think all of us are going to eventually, if you're not already being affected by it, you will be affected by it at some point. So it's not something that it's an over there problem. It's a problem that will affect everyone. And their solution is to cordon off certain parts of cities and what have you, and just simply prevent entry. And don't think that isn't the case, because look, they've already got parts of Paris will be off limits without a QR code. So if you don't have a QR code, if you're not hooked up to the system, if you don't got the hookup, if you don't got the passcode, if you don't got the secret handshake, you're not getting inside the French capital, Paris. Will be split into zones this summer, with anyone wanting to enter certain areas requiring to show a pass on their phone. So, this is them figuring out ways to control their matrix, to control access to their matrix using digital mechanisms, which they could very easily tie to the person, and as a result, continue their plan, if you will. So one of the other things that's happening right now, and again, this is what's connected to the homelessness issue, is this massive levels of tornadoes that are flying across the nation and are manifesting now in more recent times. So tornado season is here, of course. And of course, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Florida over the past few weeks have been hit, and several storms are springing up. But there's more and more attention coming in regarding not only the strength of the tornadoes, but also the frequency. So this is something that they're really tracking a lot more attention to. 2024 U.S. tornado season is on track to to be one of the most active in history. So what does that say? That says that there's a definite shift going on in the earth. There's a change in things happening, manifesting on the earth. And I do believe this is part of the curse as well, because the scripture talks about the whirlwind. And the whirlwind is part of the curse and part of judgment. So it's not just climate change. Yes, it's climate change. It's the same kind of climate change you have when you come home from school and your mom found out that you didn't do your homework and you're in trouble. Climate's going to change. The climate changed because judgment is coming down, right? When daddy found out you didn't clean the garage and he's coming home from work, how many know your climate's going to change? That's called climate change. Well, when you don't do what Elohim says and he's coming to bring judgment, you're going to have climate change. You're going to have a change in the climate. World's oceans have gone crazy haywire, officials warn, with majority of coral reefs in peril. So that's kind of an interesting reality. I'm not really sure what's going on with the coral reefs. The world's oceans have gone crazy haywire, according to National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration official, with high record temperatures imperiling coral reefs. And so now they're experiencing that. Now we're expecting to see that die off. 2/3 of the world's coral reefs have experienced heat stress at levels high enough to cause bleaching, a major health threat. And so abnormal conditions in the ocean are being recorded now. And this is going to affect another thing that we talked about. Let me see if I can find it. I know we have at least one story about it this week. That the hurricane season. Let's see if I can find it back here on Remnant Watch. Hurricane season is supposed to be really bad, and that was something we talked about, I think, a week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago? I think it might have been last week. And here we go. Geomagnetic storms that hit Earth last week could unleash a wave of hurricanes. So they were already talking about there being, sort of an excessive hurricane season on its way. And then they're saying that the geomagnetic storms are going to affect them. Well, I don't know if you know it or not, but we just got hit with another geomagnetic storm. Just the other day, we just got hit again with another, a flare. And so again, you got to kind of wonder, are they sowing this narrative so that they can make sure that we, end up where they want us to end up? Because again, there's a gathering. You're going to be bundled. You're on your way to a bundling. You're going to be bundled. The question is, where will you be bundled? Okay. And a lot of this is being done with information as well. News publishers are sounding an alarm on Google's new AI-infused search, warns of catastrophic impacts. And last week we heard that, these things are lying. They're learning to lie. AI doomsday clock appears ready to strike midnight for publishers. Google on Tuesday announced that it will infuse its ubiquitous search engine with its powerful artificial intelligence model, Gemini, drawing on rapidly advancing technology to directly answer any user queries at the top of results pages. Google will do the Googling for you, basically. And so you're seeing now basically making people, I think, trying to get them dumbed down. So this is where I believe they're headed. They're continuing their effort to direct the thinking. And if they can even, hey, let me finish that search for you. In fact, let me just do the search for you. In fact, let me just tell you what to think. Some of this stuff is laughable. Here's another thing that I thought was laughable. And for those of you that stuck around and hung out with me here while we were going through our technical difficulties, you can hang out with me on this last portion. Boat strikes causes oil spill and a partial collapse of a bridge between Galveston, Texas, and Pelican Island in Texas. And so all of a sudden, in the U.S., nobody knows how to drive a barge anymore. All of a sudden, it's hit the bridge. Hit the bridge is the new game. We're going to hit the bridge. What are we doing today? Hitting the bridge. and maybe it's because, and it could be this, and this is another thought, guys. Did they turn things over to the AIs and to the robots, and they don't want to tell us that it was the robot that ran it? I don't know. But they definitely are expanding their robots, artificial intelligence. This article this is an article on Remnant Watch that basically a freak robot made in China can learn, think, and work like humans. And so, are they testing these things in real time? Are we being guinea pigged? I don't know. That's a good question, though. It's one of those. Is that the reason why we're seeing some of the results that we're seeing throughout the earth right now? Maybe we're seeing some mistakes that are actually AI, and they don't want to tell anybody it's AI because they want to keep fixing it. Find its mistakes and keep fixing it, keep making it better, right? So this is becoming a very interesting thing indeed as we watch it unfold. Oh, here's the story on solar flares. Let me get that on the screen real quick. Scientists warning that 2025 more powerful solar eruptions could erupt and hit Earth in 2025. So once again, prophesying, once again predicting, out in front, trying to tell us the future. Okay, and could be the worst geomagnetic storm in 165 years. So they're certainly seeding the narrative way out in front of any of us at this point, to ensure that they basically, keep control. But I do see major pushback, and you see the effect of the remnant in the earth. And nothing says that more than this last story that I'm going to share with you tonight. This is a very interesting, very encouraging story. In Louisiana is set to become the first state. This is also the same state that I believe it was Louisiana. Was it Tennessee? I'm not sure. I think it may have been Tennessee. But we're seeing states push back, right? Tennessee just pushed back against the spraying, and Louisiana is set to become the first state requiring 10 commandments to be posted in the schools. So this is incredibly good. It's a reflection of good repentance, coming back to the commandments of Elohim, coming back to the things that we were commanded to do. This is a good thing. This is the thing that we wanted to see and need to see in this hour. So I take that as major encouragement. I don't know about the rest of you, but I take it as a great big encouragement that we have a state that is going that far, proactively saying we will make sure that every school has the 10 commandments displayed, which I grew up with. I don't know about the rest of you, but those younger generation or older, we remember seeing the 10 commandments in the school every day. It was painted prominently or displayed prominently in one of the hallways or somewhere. This was just part of life in America. So we've seen the result of removing those things. Maybe we'll see the result of coming back. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray this broadcast has been a blessing. So sorry about the technical difficulties and challenges that we had, but I still pray that it was a blessing to you. And I certainly speak encouragement over all of you who are the remnant, who endure to the end. Thank you again for joining us. May Elohim bless each and every one of you. Good night.